Hello everyone, this is StrawberryShorty here with my review of Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. So, if you've been watching my channel for a bit, you probably know that I'm a longtime Resident Evil fan, and I just got back from seeing the movie. And I just gotta say from the start, I feel like really bad for the Leon fans. I mean, I'm a Leon fan, but the really, really hardcore ones are gonna be ticked by this movie. So, well, I don't feel like I need to go over the plot of the two games this movie is based on. I'm gonna be comparing them a bit, so I feel like it'll just be easier. So, to just kind of speed through this, Resident Evil 1 is about the STARS Alpha team heading into the Arklay Mountains just outside Raccoon City in search of their compatriots, the Bravo team, who were investigating in the area when contact with them was lost. We mainly focus on our playable characters, Chris and Jill, Barry, and their Captain Wesker, as they explore the Spencer Mansion, where it turns out the Umbrella Corporation has been conducting experiments. Resident Evil 2 takes place 2 months after the first game and revolves around Chris' sister Claire, who comes into town looking for him, and rookie cop Leon, who's just arriving in town for his job. They show up during the outbreak, with most of the city's inhabitants having turned into zombies. So the movie tries to combine both of these games, and I think that that's one of its biggest failings. None of the characters get enough screen time to really develop, and we also don't get much of a chance to form attachments to them. It doesn't help that most of the cast looks different from their game counterparts, preventing us from even connecting with them on a purely superficial level. Prior to the movie's release, someone, I think it was the director, kept going on about how much this was going to be like the games, and how the actors were chosen based on them being able to capture the spirit of the game's characters. This is blatantly untrue, and you'll be happier going in knowing that. There are some things taken directly from the game that fans will love, including a few locations and some Easter eggs. The characters, however, are not one of them. Chris is the only one who really looks like his game counterpart, and personality-wise, he's pretty much the only one who could pass for it. I'm not sure that's really saying much. I was never a big Chris fan, in part because I never really felt like he had much of a personality. That might be my fault for never beating either version of the original games as him, though. I still need to get on that. Anyway, even if you take appearances out of it, Jill is nothing like Jill, Wesker is nothing like Wesker, and Leon is terrible in this. He is basically nothing but comic relief. It's not even done in that offensive woke way where the male character sucks to make the female characters look better. He's just completely incompetent. Everyone's always making fun of him, and he does basically nothing for most of the movie. Also, best character is Chief Irons. I really enjoyed this version of him, even if he didn't get to do much. Continuing on with the characters, so there are many game ones missing, including all the members of STARS Bravo team, Barry, Joseph, Marvin, Kendo, and Mr. X. There is a Bravo team, but it's just 2 guys who I don't even think have the names of any actual members. They're just that irrelevant. So the plot is more like a reimagining than anything. It takes things from the games, but it's less like a coherent plot and more like a checklist of plot points. I'm fine with a reimagining, because a complete copy of the games wouldn't be interesting, but there are a few flaws with the film's approach. The first is just how much people kept stressing it would be like the games. Fans are going in expecting that to be true, and after having been given a series of movies previously that, whether you like them or hate them, definitely weren't faithful adaptations overall, they should have just been honest about what the film really was. Because fans were looking forward to that. The second issue is that the things that are changed ultimately mean nothing. Early on, we learn about a relationship between 2 characters who never even met in the games. This change intrigued me as it paved way for, some interesting interactions between them. They do meet, but nothing really interesting happens. The movie feels like a bunch of random game moments thrown together, and a bunch of stuff never gets explained or addressed. We learn the kids at the orphanage were being experimented on. That's about as far as that goes. We don't learn any details or find monsters that were once kids or anything, and some of the changes are just weird. I can't really elaborate too much here, but the need to mash everything together led to so many odd moments, and the setup here feels less like a meaningful plot change and more like a way to work on a limited budget. I don't really follow stuff like movie budgets, but there are some things about this movie that really make it seem like they were tight on funds. The setup aside, there are so few zombies, and most don't look that great to me. This is especially weird, considering even Halloween makeup can make a decent zombie if used right. The CGI is also pretty bad in some parts, especially for the zombie dogs. And speaking of word choices, I gotta mention the music. There are a few parts that just randomly have songs, and I didn't really like this. Though, I do want to mention that they have a part where Claire puts on My Favorite Game by the Cardigans, which I actually first heard in a Claire AMV someone made years ago, so that's kinda neat. There's also weird cuts to what time it is, like this is an episode of Law & Order. Anyway, back to the plot. The characters were underused, there were no meaningful changes, and there were so many moments that were so cringy you almost wanted to laugh. And I'm not honestly sure these moments were intentional. I'm not going to go so far as to say I hated the movie, but I don't really feel like I enjoyed it all that much. If you're not an RE fan, I'm not sure there's anything for you here, and if you are, there's a high chance you'll end up disappointed by some of the choices. As an adaptation, it doesn't really work. These characters don't look or feel like their game counterparts to the point where you could name them all something completely different and it wouldn't matter. That said, it does seem like some fans didn't like the movie, so there's some hope. I definitely think you'll have a higher chance of enjoying it if you go in knowing what to expect and what not to expect. But anyway, let's get into spoilers here. So the movie starts off with Claire and Chris as kids at the orphanage, and the nurse is watching the Golden Girls, which is sweet. Fun fact, I actually went to see this movie wearing a Golden Girls shirt. Anyway, right off, I have to give credit to the orphanage here for actually looking like a place Umbrella might be using. One of my biggest complaints about the orphanage in the remake of 2 was that it was clearly just a set piece for Sherry's segment, to the point of being comically small. Here, it's a full-blown facility. Claire meets Lisa, which actually brings me to one of the other problems I had with the orphanage in the remake, and that's how one of the kids they took to experiment on somehow managed to get back to the building. Lisa's story is never really explained. We see a file on her later, but I wasn't able to read the text in theaters, so who she's supposed to be in the film was unclear. And why isn't anyone looking for her? In the remake of RE1, she was thought dead and took over the mansion grounds. How is she wandering around with no one aware of it? Between the orphanage and the lab, you'd think someone would see her on a camera or something. Also, she never did that stretch thing she does in the trailers. That said, I don't hate her in this role. Her existence feels like nothing more than fan service, but whatever. We'll talk more about her later when she appears again. I like the actor they chose for Birkin more as the younger version of him, which feels weird to say. He works at the orphanage, and it's a little creepy. Anyway, years later, we get a first look at our protagonists proper. Leon is an absolute joke, both to us and his co-workers, as his character. The STARS members joke around a bit, and they're fine, but like I mentioned earlier, Jill and Wesker feel like completely different people. These two random officers are going to check out the Spencer mansion, which is supposed to be abandoned. Turns out these guys are Bravo team, which is such a letdown. Leon is drinking and depressed, but I wasn't initially bothered by this, because part of his original backstory was that he was late for starting his new job due to being depressed over a breakup and having gotten drunk, but it gets worse. So, one big change here is the setup, which I was talking about when I mentioned it feeling like a budget choice. They made Raccoon City essentially a ghost town. Umbrella left, and there are just a few people still in the town, and most of them hate living there. Everyone is just sick, except for the cops and some people that are connected to Umbrella, but this is never really explained much. Apparently the water was contaminated, and Ben mentions there was some leak that Umbrella is desperate to hide. The waitress has been bleeding from her eyes for weeks, but doesn't think it's worth seeing a doctor over, which is really weird. Also, the two crows in this movie are so freaking creepy. They scare me more than any of the actual monsters. Claire hitches a ride into Raccoon City with the trucker from the Resident Evil 2 remake. His dog is so cute, but it's totally gonna die. Claire breaks into Chris's house, and they apparently haven't seen each other in 5 years. This is a bit weird because it's unclear if this is supposed to be when she ran away from the orphanage. We eventually learn that Birkin and several other staffers tried to take Claire away one night to be experimented on when she was just a kid, and she ran away. How she survived as a child on the streets is never addressed, nor is why Chris doesn't know about it or believe her. He talks about her conspiracy theories, but this isn't the same as her swearing she sees some monster lady. She just up and goes missing, with the staff just telling him, apparently, that she ran away, and he doesn't think this is strange? And did she never tell him about them taking her? Seriously, why make this change and never address any of this stuff? Moving on to another change, Chris here owes a lot to Umbrella, as they put him through the academy, for some reason, and he views Birkin as a father figure. This was actually something that interested me, because it could really shake things up. Nothing ultimately comes of it, however, beyond Birkin saying a few mocking things to Chris after he mutates. Another thing that ultimately comes to nothing is Birkin actually goes with his wife and Sherry to secure the virus. We knew from the trailer they'd be together, but they're only in about 2 scenes after this. So, back to Chris's house, there's this really lame part. Just before breaking in, Claire saw a little boy and his mother, I guess, who hardly had any hair. The boy seems to be hiding in the house, and he does Sherry's "You Need Help" line from the remake. This is followed by a really awkward scene where the woman runs and breaks through the glass door to attack Claire. We never see the kid at all. It's just so strange. How did he even get in? The door was locked. More joking around at the police station. There's a guy that I swear they call Brad, and they even mention the helicopter, but then I swear this is the same guy they call Richard later, so that, really confused me. Irons comes in to yell at them, and I maintain that he is the best character. They've lost all contact with those two random officers, leading to the revelation that this is the Bravo team, so the remaining STARS members get sent to go find them, except Leon, because he has to be useless over by the front desk. This is one of the scenes that shows the problem with trying to combine the two plots. As mentioned earlier, in the game, Alpha Team is sent in because Bravo Team goes missing, but they're an actual team, not just two guys. Sending in 5 people just to find them seems a bit much, especially when you consider they were only going to investigate a single body. In the game, this also makes sense because Wesker is actually purposefully trying to lure the STARS members there. He isn't here, and there's nothing to indicate Irons is either. So Trucker Guy is now zombified and crashes into the police station, with his truck exploding right in front of the building. Leon, who is sleeping and listening to music on duty, does not wake up and nearly gets killed by a fiery trucker zombie that is accompanied by his own soundtrack. He'd literally be dead if Irons hadn't saved him. That's right, Irons saves Leon. He then continues to be the best character because after realizing how bad things are getting, he packs up his things in a box and just leaves. Like, that's what I would want to do in this situation. He also promotes Leon in a genuinely funny exchange, so Leon's the new chief of police. Good for him. Unfortunately, Irons fails to get out of the city, forcing him to return to the police station. He gets attacked by bad CGI in the parking garage and shoots every time he hears a noise. I totally thought he was going to die here, but he gets saved by Claire. Claire's the one to suggest going to the armory and quickly gives the useless Leon a bulletproof vest. Leon finds Ben, sporting a very 90s windbreaker, but of course Ben dies. Claire has to save Leon yet again and tells him to shape up. The zombie she just killed gets back up the second she leaves, and Leon empties an entire clip into it, because who needs bullets in a situation like this? Well, to be fair, there are only a handful of zombies in Raccoon City, and most of them are being weird over by the gate to the station, so I guess bullets aren't that much of an issue. At the Spencer mansion, Wesker uses a strategy guide to easily find the way to the labs. He's still a traitor, but like, in a really lame way. He's basically Ada, having been offered money by some unknown party to get whatever Umbrella was working on. Jill, who has a thing for him, is really mad, talking about how he was going to leave them to die. This seems really random. I don't think he's even mentioned the city being destroyed, but even if he has, she didn't walk in on him packing a suitcase. There's no guarantee he was going to just abandon them. This Wesker actually does seem to care about his team. He apparently just wants the money to get out of Raccoon City for good. He couldn't just transfer, I guess. Oh, and Chris and Richard just get attacked. Richard dies in a not cool way, and Chris does not get dirty at all no matter what happens to him. He has a weird shootout with zombies who come out of nowhere where the screen keeps going dark. A similar scene plays out with one of the zombified cop guys, even though I thought the cops were supposed to not be able to get infected, but whatever. Zombified cop keeps getting closer, and Chris's lighter just keeps going out. Chris makes no attempt to run or anything, just sits there on the floor and keeps messing with the lighter. It's the lamest, most predictable scare. Oh, and Brad is in this, sitting in the helicopter playing Tetris. He gets attacked, and this somehow causes the helicopter to crash into the mansion. Irons leads Claire and Leon to the orphanage, and I guess he's still involved with Umbrella vaguely, but it's never really addressed. He sadly gets killed by a licker. Said licker then gets utterly demolished by Lisa Trevor. Lisa and Claire recognize each other, and Lisa helps them get underground. She then just disappears for the rest of the movie. It's really disappointing. We learn nothing about her, and she got no closure. We finally see the Birkin family again. William is trying to get his G samples while his wife and the girl who's totally Sherry, despite not looking at all like her, are freaked out by a dissected zombie person who's alive on an operating table in the same room. Wesker shows up and demands the samples, and if you've played the games, you know where this is going. Birkin tries to shoot him, so Wesker shoots and seriously wounds him in return. At Birkin's request, his wife gets the vials for him, ignoring Wesker. She shoots at Wesker and gets killed. It all happens really fast, and Wesker actually seems to regret this, and poor Sherry is traumatized. Not too traumatized to pull a gun on Wesker, though. He points his at her on instinct after hearing the noise she makes, and then there's a gunshot, and I totally thought Sherry had just murdered Wesker, which would have been a little awesome, especially since she has had basically no role in this. But it was Joe. They have this awkward dying moment with Wesker, who's all remorseful and tells Sherry he wouldn't have shot her. Sherry hugs Chris like they know each other, but that's never addressed. William, who obviously injected himself, mutates hilariously. He's wearing a total dad shirt, his mutated arm looks like bad makeup and is way too small, and he mocks Chris in this really cringy way before Claire kills him. The group escapes, and Leon randomly kills Birkin with a rocket launcher he just found, and it still doesn't make him cool. Raccoon City just, I don't know. It doesn't get nuked, but it collapses, apparently by Umbrella's hand instead of the government's. A cow dies. F for the cow. And F for the 5 people who were living in Raccoon City. We get a mid-credits scene where Wesker fights his way out of a body bag, making the lamest noises. A lot of people predicted there'd be a scene at the end where he put on the sunglasses, but they were probably picturing something like CSI Miami. I know I was. It's not even remotely cool looking, and Ada is there, except it's not Ada. Like, she's got the trench coat outfit from 2's remake, but no sunglasses, and not even the same hairstyle. It just made her feel weird, like they just got some random lady and put her in a trench coat and was like, okay, you say you're Ada. And that's the movie. Like I said, I didn't hate it, but I didn't really like it either. I don't feel any reason to ever watch it again. Irons was enjoyable, and it was nice seeing the Ashford twins. Alfred is my favorite Resident Evil character, though I think his cameo here, he was played by a girl. Where's my Code Veronica movie? Anyway, what did you all think of the movie? Did you think it was better than the other live-action adaptations? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.